What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended. Your fantasy draft is weeks, maybe even days away, and it is time to make sure you are prepared. That is exactly what Club Fantasy is here for these next 4 shows. We are breaking down our site rankings, starting with the quarterbacks tonight. It's the most important position in football, arguable how important it is in fantasy football, and we're going to dive into that tonight. We have all 5 of Club Fantasy site rankers on the show. It's going to be a blast. Let's get you ready. It is our quarterback rankings breakdown. What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. No Joe Zolo tonight, or probably for the next 6 weeks. So you are stuck with me and my voice and my beard. But not only do I have Josh Hudson tonight, I have a lot of people to distract you from not having to hear me. But Josh, how are you doing tonight? The regular co-host of No Punt.
Yeah, getting ready to talk some quarterbacks. It's going to be fun. All these mock drafts and producing for the Women of Fantasy stuff that I've been doing lately. It's good to dive into football talk, and yeah, good times. Love it.
Yeah, as Josh mentioned, it is going to be our quarterback rankings breakdown. This is a show we've been putting together, I think, for each of the last 3 years. Last year was the first time we moved it to 9:00 on Wednesdays, and that's just our go-to time now. I think this show may have been the catalyst for 9:00 becoming our go-to time, and that's just how it works sometimes. But you're not just here to talk about me and Josh's rankings. We have, as Fizzle so eloquently put it, the whole gang in the building. So I'm just going to start from top right around and clockward. So I have Josh, as I mentioned. Austin Amandolia, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing good. It almost sounded like you were about to say I'm going to go around the horn, which I think would have put us in a copyright lawsuit.
Exactly.
So how'd you miss that one?
Hey, that show just went off the air, so I think we're okay.
It's ours now.
Mute button.
Yeah. Austin, at Austin _ FFL, anything you got going on right now?
Being here, just doing all of the streams, the mock drafts, trying to cook up some best ball shows. If the Fantasy Football Expo wasn't causing some scheduling quirks, but we'll get there. We got a little time still.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on this week. That's a really good point. Just below Austin, Joel Wirth, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Yeah, speaking of the Expo right here in beautiful Canton, Ohio this weekend. Looking forward to it. Hope everyone in the chat's going to be there. Come say hi. I'll be there. I'll be around all weekend. So
love it. And Joel, what a fitting time to have you on this episode, as you just dropped a Lamar Jackson article. So.
I did. Yeah. It's what did I say? How I learned to stop worrying and start loving the elite quarterback. I think the late round quarterback thing has really gone too far. And I think if you read the article, you'll see why I feel that way. But
yeah, I thought it was a great story and might actually come up later on the show. And our final ranker, Chris Molina. How are you, my friend?
Hey, everyone. Nice to be back on the show. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, Chris rocking his Rams gear, and that's actually going to be pertinent to some of the NFL news that's coming up here soon. You guys are all over the news right now. And Chris, you just recently dropped a Puka Nacua article as well, correct?
Yeah, trust Puka. I'm just like Joel's trusting the elite QB. Trust Puka here.
Yeah. So these are the 5 rankers at Club Fantasy, myself included. Joel is not currently on the website because me and Josh were slackers getting Joel invited to the show, and then Fantasy Pros isn't doing what they're supposed to do. So we're going to get that all cleared up by next week's running back episode. But for tonight, you may not be able to find his rankings on the website, but he'll be able to give you his opinion on all the dumb stuff we're about to say. Just throwing that out there. Josh, go ahead and hit
you could just look at my rankings and just go off of those. They're the right ones.
There you go. And I think we all feel that way. Josh, go ahead and hit that Trophy Smack banner for me. Guys, we are still working with Trophy Smack this season. It's fantasy football season. Trophy Smack has all the goods for you to show off your excellence and intimidate your league mates. Get yourself a draft board. If you guys have not done a live draft with the draft board, it is absolutely awesome. Just came back from Scott Fish Bowl a few weeks ago where we did the live draft in New York City and had a draft board. It's absolutely awesome. And you can get championship swag. I got the belt here behind me. I think some people in this room probably have the Trophy Smack rings for some leagues they won. And you can use promo code Club Fantasy to get yourself a free ring or belt, or excuse me, a free ring with the purchase of a belt or trophy, as long as the belt or trophy is $149 or more. That's a free championship ring to go with your belt or trophy. Just make sure you use our affiliate link. You'll find it in the description of this video. Promo code Club Fantasy is going to get you that free ring. And if you like the content, before we even get started, like, subscribe. If you disagree with anything we say on this show, drop it in the comments. That does all the great things that we need it to do to get us boosted up in the YouTube algorithm so more people can find out about this great show. Like, subscribe, do us a favor there. Let's start this thing off with NFL news. And as I alluded to, the Rams are big in the NFL news because it came out today or recently that Matthew Stafford is dealing with an aggravated disc in his back. He's been receiving an epidural to help him deal with this issue. I guess the question is, we're probably going to get to Stafford later in this episode, though we are all pretty low ranked on him. Jimmy Garoppolo would take over as a starter. And Chris, as the Rams fan, I'm just going to start with you here. The transition from Matthew Stafford to Jimmy Garoppolo, if it happens, or I guess in general, should this worry any of us about Rams pass catchers?
No, probably not. It's still the same system, still McVay, still centered on the two wide receivers and everyone else fighting for scraps. But, as a Rams fan, I would probably be looking to the 2026 NFL draft if Matthew Stafford missed any time. We had to start Jimmy Garoppolo for more than a couple of weeks. But it doesn't worry me, though. I mean, we've been dealing with this every offseason. Stafford, chronic back issues, older. It's a lot of pain management. Until I see him get knocked out of a game, I won't be anxious about this.
Yeah. Joel, I'll let you jump in here. As me and you are the resident old men of this Club Fantasy group. I won't have you chime in on concern about Stafford because neither of us are doctors. We don't know. But Chris is going to be optimistic. Are you any more pessimistic about these pass catchers? Or is Jimmy Garoppolo? If it were Jimmy Garoppolo for week 1, are you worried about Puka or Devontae Adams?
I'm not really worried about Stafford. I mean, he's played through back injuries before. He played through back injuries since he's been in Detroit. So, it's probably good that they're actively trying to do maintenance on it. But I'm just not super Stafford plays through everything. So I'm not. Yeah. My concern level is very low right now.
That's why I say unless he gets knocked out of a game, I expect him to start and play through any kinds of pain.
Yeah, Austin, I think it's pretty safe to say Matthew Stafford's probably one of the few guys in the league that doesn't really need a preseason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, maybe he gets off to a slow start without training camp. I would probably downgrade the receivers a little bit with Jimmy Garoppolo just because, people were like, oh, Brock Purdy makes throws that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't. And, I love Brock Purdy, but, he's not, he's not an elite quarterback. He's, a good quarterback. And so I do think,
Oh, you got muted there, Austin. I was like, what happened? I thought you were just making faces. I was like, okay, this is interesting content.
I think the receivers will be fine. I'm not going to downgrade them significant amount, but I would lower expectations a little bit if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up starting week 1.
Josh, wrap us up on the Rams quarterback situation.
Yeah, the only issue I have is Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to throw as many touchdowns as Matthew Stafford. I think the yards can still be there, but at the end of the day, Fizzle says it best. He's taken a vet camp off.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude is not quite Aaron Rodgers old, but he's up there in age, and he's just right now is just dealing with the ramifications of Detroit and their neglect of getting him an offensive line when he was there.
Yeah. The other two
also remember that Devontae Adams produced with Jimmy Garoppolo in Vegas, so I'm not
interesting. Completely forgot
super
about
worried
that.
About that either.
Yeah.
If it comes to that. So
there you go. Yeah. I that had slipped my mind. I'm glad you brought that up. The other two pieces of news are around rookie quarterbacks. And I don't know that either is too interesting. I'll let you guys chime in on this if you like. Steelers rookie 6th-round pick Will Howard broke his hand. Seems unlikely, at least early on, that he is going to beat out Mason Rudolph as the second-string quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers. This one's a little bit more significant. Shedeur Sanders is going to start the preseason game for the Cleveland Browns. Right now, Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett are dealing with injuries. Joe Flacco is almost getting the betting odds week 1 starter. So Sanders seems to be the freshest legs to start week 1. I'm going to lean on that one if you guys want to talk about the backup situation in Pittsburgh. But is there anything Shedeur Sanders can do this preseason, Josh, that's going to bring him up to anybody's fantasy radar?
Well, I mean, he's clearly already on everybody's fantasy radar because he keeps getting drafted, and the Browns still haven't named a starting quarterback. But, I mean, really what I look at this as, it seems to me that the Browns have already made their decision that Joe Flacco is going to be their starting quarterback.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought.
Because you're not going to start a 40-year-old quarterback in the preseason. Like, he doesn't really have anything else to show. But I personally, as somebody that's talked about this all throughout the offseason, I think it's a stupid decision to start Joe Flacco. This team is not ready to compete. I'm sorry. You only start Flacco if you expect to win. This team is bad, plain and simple. You need to see what these young guys can do because this is a classic case of head coach, GM fighting for their jobs. That's what this is, because the ownership decided that Deshaun Watson falls on them and not ownership. But I digress. Shedeur getting the start, you could almost look at this as an audition to potentially be traded, because right now they have 6 quarterbacks on their roster because they signed Snoop Huntley as well.
Who am I missing? Is Snoop would be the 5th. Who's the 6th?
Deshaun is still technically.
Oh, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they have 6 quarterbacks here. Like, 3 of them are hurt, and one of them obviously is 40-year-old and the likely starter. So that's what I'm getting at. So, like, they're likely cutting 3 of these quarterbacks at some point. And if Shedeur Sanders can come out and actually play, maybe there's some trade value, and it'll show other teams that he's not the media circus that the draft and everybody else in the media made him out to be heading into the NFL draft.
Anybody more optimistic on Shedeur Sanders staying with the Browns? Or,
I mean, he'll stay with the Browns because whoever has Shedeur Sanders on his team has free press coverage coming to their team. So I would be surprised to actually see Cleveland trade away Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders plays out, all of a sudden, all of the bad press that they've been given, it won't totally go away. But all of a sudden, it's like the story about Cleveland Browns is, wow, Shedeur Sanders, they really bet on him and brought him back. And look at what's happening here. And now Dion showing up at game, right? Like, I don't see them just trading away Shedeur, even just because he does bring press coverage. But for the good pun there, for the actual fantasy implications, I don't have an interest in whoever the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback is. I don't care if it's Shedeur Sanders, Gabriel, or Joe Flacco. I'm not drafting any one of them. And even in best ball, I'm like, I don't want to touch it. It feels like it's going to be a 0 in my underdog leagues.
Joel, I feel like you want to fight about that, but that actually plays into, I believe, my third to last question for the entire show. So we are not going to dive too deep into this. If you or Chris has any other quick points you want to make here before we actually move on to the show sheet.
You guys are just proving my point that Joe Flacco is Jameis Winston with the worst publicist. He's the exact same guy.
What the hell did Joe Flacco do in Indy last year? Please enlighten me.
He'll put up fantasy points. He'll throw a ton of interceptions. He'll cost them games, but he'll support Jerry Jeudy. He'll support Cedric Tillman. He'll support David Njoku.
This wasn't about Jerry Jeudy or Cedric Tillman. It was about not wanting to draft Joe Flacco.
So I agree with Austin to an extent. They're not going to trade him, but they might cut him. I think the Browns starting him against Carolina week 1, when Dave Canales said he plans to play his starters, is pretty diabolical. If he tanks, that's reason to just.
Let's not give the Carolina defense too much credit. Starters.
Well, but that's kind of the point. If he can't be the number 1 Carolina, or the Carolina Panther starters, and how bad that defense is, what chance does he truly have going against other top defenses?
It's a way to cut him, or if he goes and balls out, they're like, see, we made the right decision. He's staying on the team. Yeah. That's what I would say.
Josh, before we move on and actually get into the QB rankings episode for here, Club Fantasy, No Punt Intended, we have a very special month ahead of us with women of fantasy football. And why don't you go ahead and let folks know what we have going on and what they can do to help out?
I'd argue it's a very special season for women in fantasy football because we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We're not doing the traditional WAF podcast where it's just August and then that's that. Kelly's going through, new job, things of that nature. Faith is kind of taking a step back from podcasting. So we're working on trying to revamp a little bit. But the biggest thing, obviously, is the Gods and Goddesses of Fantasy Football Tournament. If you follow us at all on social media, it's at women_FF on Instagram and Twitter. But this month, we're raffling off a signed Nico Collins Houston Texans jersey. You can go to the pin post on our Twitter page. You can hit the link and all the raffle tickets are $5. All the proceeds will go towards our WAF Galvanized Scholarship Fund, much like we've done over the past, this will be year 4 now, I believe. And every month we're going to have a new jersey to raffle off versus in years past, we've done 2 jerseys per week. So we're kind of stretching it out a little bit to try to keep engagement up and things of that nature. But the theme of this tournament obviously is gods and goddesses, right? It's the legends. It's the people that, have been on that high pedestal. So that's kind of something that we wanted to do with the in-season jersey raffles. And I think we got some good ones. I just got the last of the 4 yesterday. So should be a lot of fun. And each month we're going to be, all the raffle purchases are going to go towards a specific charity as well. Just outside of the Galvanized stuff for this month.
So I'll be proud of me. I just drafted Quentin Johnston in my Gods and Goddesses league.
Hey, there's your first cut. There's free agency in Gods and Goddesses, right?
Hey, and then I'll pick him up.
There we go. So, Women of Fantasy Football, or it's .com. Okay, I was gonna say I'm getting the Twitter handle and the website confused. You guys can get your raffle tickets there. WomenOfFantasyFootball.com. Get yourself some jerseys. So some pretty cool stuff going on.
We've already, just through 2 days, we announced it on Monday. Through 2 days, we've already sold $150 in raffle tickets. So
awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah. All right, folks. As mentioned, these are the rankers from our website. Joel will be on soon. It is clubfantasyffl.com. Over the next 4 weeks, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. live, we are going to be breaking down our rankings. We are obviously starting with quarterbacks tonight, running backs next week, so on, so forth. You can see everybody's Twitter handles underneath their names. Let's get to the consensus top 12. Keep in mind, Joel is not a part of this consensus, and that is actually going to come up in about 2 topics. However, these were the 12 as of yesterday morning. Josh Allen at 1, Lamar Jackson at 2, Jalen Hurts at 3, Jayden Daniels at 4, Joe Burrow at 5, Bo Nix at 6, Patrick Mahomes at 7, Kyler Murray at 8, Justin Herbert 9, Baker Mayfield 10, Brock Purdy 11, Caleb Williams 12. And so when I was able to look at these consensus rankings, the first thing that jumped out to me, our top 5 is the exact same top 5 for everybody here, probably Joel included. Again, can't see his right now. However, Joel, do you also have Lamar Jackson at number 1? I know you're a big fan this season.
Yes, I do.
Perfect. I'm going to let Chris get started, but you can obviously chime in. Me, Josh, and Austin have Josh Allen at 1, a spot where he's always been. Chris, I was giving you the honor of getting started here because Chris Molina has written articles about how much he loves Josh Allen, and yet this season, to kick this show off, Lamar Jackson is your number 1. Let us know why you got Lamar over Josh Allen.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw my rankings after that, but it boils down to, the Bills are a running team now. Joe Brady wants to run the football. They don't have those big pass catchers like they had Diggs when Josh Allen went 1-2-1-1 before this last season. Lowest attempts since 2019, lowest passing yards since 2019, lowest passing touchdowns since 2019, lowest rush attempts since 2020. I think it's going to be more of the same with Buffalo. He should still be a comfortable top 2, top 3 QB. I don't have any qualms drafting him. I love Josh Allen. Loved him since Wyoming. But Lamar's the game breaker, and Josh Allen's kind of the steady top 2 to me.
Yeah, and Joel, you obviously wrote an article for your ode, and I looked at your article more as a draft strategy article than just a Lamar Jackson is great article. So do you have anything to chime in on Lamar over Josh Allen?
As I pointed out in the article, Lamar Jackson just had the best fantasy season of all time last year. The most fantasy points, if non-PPR, if you include PPR than LaDainian Tomlinson since 2006. It was higher. Other than that, he had the most fantasy points scored in a season of all time ever in the Super Bowl era last season. He outscored the quarterback to Josh Allen by 50 points, fantasy points.
Yeah.
Nothing is changing in his situation, right? He's still got Derrick Henry. He's still got Todd Monken. He's still got all his receivers. He's got this exact same team coming back. I don't know how you I don't know how you rank Josh Allen ahead of him for the reasons that Chris just elucidated. That's a team that wants to run the ball more. He outscored Josh Allen by 50 points last year. That's not insignificant.
Didn't Josh Allen not play like 20 quarters last year, though? Like, I'm pretty sure a guy like that can make up 50 fantasy points. So, like,
well, he also
if he plays those games, we're talking about Josh Allen having the most.
This isn't the difference between QB1 and QB12 or QB1 and
no, I understand. I mean, it's splitting hairs.
This is QB1 and QB2. That's a stunning fantasy season.
I wasn't even going to have you guys defend Josh Allen. Josh has been making the point for months now about how many quarters Josh Allen sat last season. So I wasn't going to have anybody defend Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen ADP defends itself. Like, that's where everybody's taking is the 101. The Lamar Jackson debate, I think, is one worth having. Until 3 weeks ago, Jayden Daniels was actually my QB1. For various reasons, he's moved down my rankings. I think he settled in at 3 at this point. But Josh, do we need to consider moving Daniels even further down with all of this McLaurin drama and the questionable weapons for him there in Washington?
I mean, I've thought about it. I mean, he slots in as my QB4. He's one of only 4 quarterbacks that I have projected to score over 400 fantasy points, which I know how rarefied that 400 mark is for quarterbacks. But I also do mine for 6 point per passing touchdown.
Yeah.
I know Fantasy Pros rankings is only 4 points. So, but when you look at it in terms of that, I mean, when he came into the league, he was a much more polished passer than guys like Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson, who he is very often compared to just from style of play and what he's able to do running the football. And then he went out and rushed for 891 yards on top of his high-end completion percentage. I believe it was over 69% or right around 69%. So, like, yes, would it suck to not have Terry McLaurin? 100%. But when you really stop and look at it, McLaurin was only 20% of his target share. Like, he didn't hyper-target Terry McLaurin at like a 28% clip where that would truly make me worried that if you didn't have Terry McLaurin, those numbers are going down. The touchdowns can go down, but he has a much better wide receiver too in Deebo Samuel than he had last year. And that's saying something from me because I'm not a big Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver guy. I love him as a playmaker, and he does know how to score touchdowns.
Yeah,
but
Josh, you killed.
And they'll find ways to get him the football. So I'm not like, yes, it's going to hurt. Anytime you lose your wide receiver 1, it's going to hurt. But you know, if I had him at 1, then yeah, I'd probably be moving him down. But to me, there's still a gap between those top 4 guys and then the next tier, which is basically Joe Burrow by himself.
So Josh killed my transition because I expected you to go that entire conversation without mentioning Deebo because I know your hatred. So I was going to say, Austin, since Josh didn't want to mention Deebo. But Austin, if you were going into this, I don't have the rankings directly in front of me right now because I'm trying to be a good host. But Austin, it looks like you have Daniels at 5. If you were going into this season, Terry McLaurin gets traded. Is that moving Jayden Daniels down with Deebo Samuel as his 1 and I guess Noah Brown as his 2?
I don't think so. I mean, first off, let's not hate on Noah Brown. Okay,
I love Noah Brown.
A perfectly fine receiver. Secondly, though, it is the rushing upside that I think continues to keep him in the top 5 for me. Like, if I were to move him down any lower merit rankings, I'd have to move him behind Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, or Brock Purdy, and I just don't feel comfortable doing that. Now, I have him ranked a little bit lower. In general, like I'm not putting him in my top 3 because I am a little nervous to just guarantee and bank on like, oh, year 2 is going to be an improvement over year 1. He's going to repeat his year 1 just because there is the possibility that he takes a CJ Stroud route and actually regresses in year 2. I just want to float that there's that possibility out there. He's still in my top 5. He's still a great draft pick. But with or without Terry McLaurin, it's not going to change my assessment of him. My assessment is really about how much do I think he's going to be able to maintain in year 2 versus how much your defense is going to adapt to his play style and start to attack him in a different way.
Joel, your rankings are the freshest of anybody, with Daniels being a little bit of a Lamar clone. How do you have Jayden Daniels ranked right now?
I've got him at 3. It's basically a coin flip with Hurts. Like, I could go back and forth on either one. I have zero concern about Terry McLaurin being there or not being there. I mean, he's going to be fine either way. But I guess my concern is like the offense. Like, they were hyper efficient on 3rd and 4th down last year. Is that sustainable? I don't know. But I'm much more worried about that than any Terry. McLaurin's going to be there, right? That he's not going to find anyone who's going to pay him what he wants. Yeah. He can request any trade he wants. Somebody's going to have to want to pay him what he wants. He's not. I just don't see him going anywhere. I don't think Washington wants, like, this is a team that just kind of broke through the glass ceiling last year. They're not going to want to take a step back. So, yeah, I just don't see him going anywhere. So I'm more worried about the offense regressing than I am any Terry McLaurin issues.
And Chris, that kind of perfectly sets up what Austin and Joel said that I wanted to ask you, because being a Rams fan, you're probably more familiar with Cliff Kingsbury than the rest of us. And when we were talking about this on a recent episode, I said, I don't know that it'll be a carbon copy of last year's offense either, because we've seen Cliff Kingsbury throw a lot more than they did last year. But I question how much he'll be willing or able to change his offense if McLaurin starts slow or isn't there at the beginning, Chris.
I do think there's that possibility that they let the training wheels off. I think he started pretty slow passing the ball, and we've seen that progress throughout the season. But, you can't trust Cliff Kingsbury. Those 6 rushing touchdowns, I believe it was 6, could easily turn to 2. And then Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler can combine for like 20. And then that drops him down to 5-6 range, which I think is his floor in a healthy season anyways. But yeah, that's my only bit of concern is Cliff Kingsbury messing with the offense, and what happens, how they adapt to being less efficient on 3rd and 4th down. When he was pressured, he wasn't that great. I don't remember where I heard the stat, but he was one of the worst QBs, for win rate against pressure. So
interesting.
We'll see how they adapt there.
All right. When you have a consensus top 12 that is so close, it's easy to kind of pass over all of the great quarterbacks we all have in common. These are the highest ranked quarterbacks. We're going to get into draft strategy a little bit later in the show about whether you should spend money on these high ranked quarterbacks or spend draft capital on these high ranked quarterbacks. But there are some glaring things that stand out when someone hates a player. And while Josh Hudson will deny his hatred, there is a reason that one Baker Mayfield is on the thumbnail for this episode. You see, Baker Mayfield falls as the consensus number 10 quarterback here at Club Fantasy. Josh, in the middle of denying his hatred, has him ranked at 17th. Josh, Baker Mayfield was a top 5 quarterback last season. Number 10 consensus here at Club Fantasy. 17? Explain yourself.
Yeah, it just boils down to my rankings are based on my projections. So it's all like how the numbers work. That's that. But this is what I'll say. The difference between QB 17 Baker Mayfield and QB 9 is literally 22 fantasy points. That is not a huge difference. And it just goes to further illustrate that between QB 9 and 22, any of those guys can literally finish as the QB 9 or the QB 22. Yeah. When it comes to Baker, look, he set career highs in passing yards, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, and rushing yards last year. Okay. Losing Tristan Wirfs for any amount of time this season is going to be detrimental to him, plain and simple. It's going to be detrimental to that whole entire offensive line, but more importantly to Baker. Now, could that cause him to scramble more? 100%. Based on my projections, the way that I kind of statted him out, he's never, before last year, he never had a season over 30 passing touchdowns. Actually, he never had a season over 29 passing touchdowns. So then he jumps all the way up to 41. I mean, I don't know how you can realistically not expect some level of regression to the mean, right? Like, anytime you see these like kind of spike seasons like that, more often than not, they're not going to carry, especially when the guy sets that standard at 29 years old. If we're talking about a 23-year-old Baker Mayfield doing this, I'd be much more inclined to think, okay, there's a very high possibility this can happen again. But you're also dealing with a wide receiver core that has basically opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to age. You've got the old guys in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both of whom missed significant time last year. One of them who is not healthy right now. And then you have two young guys in second-year Jalen McMillan, who caught on towards the end of that last season. I'm not denying that. He looked really good. And Emeka Egbuka, who I absolutely love heading into this season. But again, old, new, right? He still has to develop rapport with Emeka Egbuka, right? Yeah. So there's going to be some level of adjustment period with this. And the adjustment, finding the timing with edge defenders getting past the Tristan Wirfs replacement on the left side. So that's kind of where that boils down to. But I shaved about 170 rushing yards off of Baker Mayfield. I mean, you add that right back, he's QB 11 for me. So it's you're talking about like this when it comes to point differential and why he ends up that way in my rankings.
No, I'm glad you explained it that way, because it can look wild, but when you explain it, it's everybody's one touchdown away from jumping up 6 rankings. Chris, you have Baker projected, or at least ranked, to kind of repeat what he did last season. You are our highest ranker on Baker at QB 6. So do you want to counterpoint Josh at all here?
Sure. We've been going back and forth about Baker quite a few times. But I have Baker basically on the other side of the spectrum. Josh is right that there's going to be a group of guys that is going to be pretty much the same. QB 6, I think QB 12 was only like 15 points or something like that. But I will say, I do think Josh hates Baker, because last year he was saying the same thing after Dave Canales left and, the cautionary tale of the Bucs offense. And then he goes for 41 touchdowns. But what I will say is a 23-year-old Baker also had a 5.6% touchdown percentage in Cleveland under Freddie Kitchens. I think it was Freddie Kitchens. If it's over 5, which he's had, this wasn't his first year over 5. This is third year over 5 in essentially, I guess we can count the Carolina season in what, six seasons, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's done it half the time. And if he hits over 5% touchdown percentage, that's easily 30 touchdowns. I have him at 35, which is 6 touchdowns less than he had this year. And I have him a little less rushing, but he can get it done. And he's 2 names that Josh didn't mention either was Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. They had 109 targets last year. He knows what to do when the pocket collapses. Yeah. He'll get it to Josh's other best friend, Rachaad White. So I'm not worried about Baker. He'll be a top 10 QB this year if he's healthy.
And Joel, this kind of perfectly leads into the next question I was going to ask you guys. I wanted you guys to look at the QBs ranked 6 through 12 and tell me a story about how they cracked the top 5. I'm sure Chris just stole some of your points, but you listed Baker Mayfield, so I figure that's a good transition into that question. So what's the story on how Baker Mayfield is a top 5 quarterback this season, and who in your top 5 does he bump out?
So he was last year, or around there, right?
Done. Point made.
Pretty
no.
Well, so
so is Jared Goff. Let's not forget this, guys. Okay.
So I guess Josh, this is a big complaint I have about the entire best ball market and everything else. Everybody talks about how Baker has to regress. Joe Burrow had a career high in attempts last year by 45, completions by 45, passing yards by 300, and passing touchdowns by 8. Nobody talks about Joe Burrow regressing to the mean. But everybody does about Baker?
All right, counterpoint, Joel. Name the other 2 seasons where Joe Burrow had over 4,000 yards and 34 touchdowns. Now find those on Baker's record, because he doesn't have those. Joe Burrow does.
That's fine. Okay. The other point I want to make, 2 other points. 2 years ago, Dave Canales was his offensive coordinator and got a head coaching job. Last year was Liam Cohen, and he got head coaching up. Yep. Maybe Baker's just so goddamn good that he gets coaches hired.
He's the
Everybody think about that. He's a coach maker. The other thing, this NFC South, they're going to play 12 games against each other. The over/under on total points scored in those 12 games might be 700. None of those teams plays defense. Every one of those games is going to be an insane shootout. When in doubt, draft the South. And this is the best offense in the South. So this offense is going to put up an insane amount of points in those games. And that's a big deal.
Yeah. Like I said, I think he did it last year, I think is a good story to tell.
Yeah.
Austin, we haven't heard your voice in a while. You have a different quarterback chosen. Well, hold on, Joel. I wanted to ask you, of your top 5, I mean, I imagine it's just your number 5 guy, who would slide out of your top 5 if Baker Mayfield slid in?
Yeah, it would have to be Burrow. Like, I can't imagine he's displacing the rushing quarterbacks that are 1 through 4.
And then Austin, you have somebody else picked, a name that kind of became the forgotten man for a little while there.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert, he could make his way up into the top 5, and he's done it before. He finished his second year as the second QB overall. It's been rough times in LA since then, at least for that particular LA team. And really, the pathway there for Justin Herbert isn't that irrational. He finished as the QB 12 last year. If you imagine that he just passes more touchdowns this year, which is a very feasible thing for probably one of the best, if not the best arm in the NFL to do. Suddenly he's a top 5 quarterback. He threw 23 touchdowns last year. That's not a lot. Only 3 interceptions. If he gets that to 35, he doesn't even have to hit 40. If he gets that to 35 touchdowns, suddenly he's starting to push up towards the top 5. And if he's healthy, he then will hopefully begin to run the ball again, which is one of the things that was intriguing about him in those first couple of years. He was a little bit more dual threat than you would expect for somebody with his type of arm. He had some of those ridiculous games where he had multiple passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. Justin Herbert, I feel like he's a really big value. He's got the upside, always does. He's in that age 27 year. So to me, he's like one of those guys. I'm willing to wait, get a quarterback later, pick Justin Herbert, and potentially have top 5 upside.
If Justin Herbert makes the top 5, who's getting bumped out of your top 5, Austin?
I'm going with Jayden Daniels. There are too many signs for Washington to me to potentially regress this year. In terms of points scored, they may still be a good team and still have enough wins, but I'm not counting on them to be as high flying as they were last year.
Chris, you may have a tough time defending this pick to the fantasy football world. I feel like everybody feels like they know what to expect out of one Kyler Murray.
Oh, I also hate Kyler Murray.
But there's a world.
I saw that. That's why when I saw this that you picked Kyler, I'm like, dude, you hate Kyler. What are you doing here?
Yeah. I mean, no offense against Kyler, Boomer Sooner, but I hate rostering Kyler Murray. He has this potential,
This is not how this conversation is supposed to start.
Well, you bring up the other side, and then you come in from the.
I love it. Catch him unaware.
But 800 plus yards, 11 rushing touchdowns in 2020 when he had his big year. That's what everyone thinks of with the upside with Kyler. Yeah. Like, oh, rushing upside. Like, well, we haven't seen that in a few years, but he always has that potential. And he himself said, "I want to run the ball more."
Yeah.
Well, prove it to us that you want to run the ball more,
also
so we can draft you. And
also came out and said his knee feels the best it has since his knee surgery. So,
which is great. I'm probably going to end up rostering him again and hating my life every week when he cycles between 8 and 22 points.
Well, we're staying positive here, Chris. Tell us the story of how Kyler Murray makes the top 5.
If Marvin Harrison Jr. takes that step up, he becomes the dominant player in the red zone. Kyler's touchdowns go up. I mean, Trey McBride's already dominant. We just need to see that passing touchdown go from the 20 to 25 to 30. He will run the ball enough to stay in the top 12, but we also need some rushing touchdowns to hit that top 5. And he's shown he's capable in the past. It's just been a couple years. So I will continue to fall for this Kyler Murray trap, hoping that he'll hit the top 5. And we'll see what happens.
And Chris, in the world where Kyler Murray makes your top 5, who gets bumped out?
Oh, it's Joe Burrow for sure.
Okay, so two knocks on Burrow, 1 on Jayden Daniels. Josh, you have a familiar face that the fantasy world has also turned on. Is Patrick Mahomes the next Kyler Murray for fantasy football? Everybody just hates him now.
Look, 2025 is going to be the Patrick Mahomes revenge tour. You don't get blown out in the damn Super Bowl and consider yourself an all-time great and not take something like that personally. The last all-time great that I can remember that got absolutely embarrassed in a Super Bowl like that was Peyton Manning coming off of a 55 touchdown season when the Seattle Seahawks absolutely blanked his Denver Broncos. Yeah. And you know what Peyton did the following year? Well, yeah, he lost in the playoffs, but he also threw for over 4,700 yards and 39 touchdowns. Like,
yeah,
that's what good players do. They take shit like that personally. This is likely the best and most explosive offense that Patrick Mahomes has had since Tyreek Hill's last season in Kansas City. Like, if you have a healthy Hollywood Brown, that adds more speed. You have a healthy Xavier Worthy. We saw what he was able to do when Andy Reid schemed him up. Well, you know what? When you have another speed threat on the outside and Kelsey and Rashee Rice working the middle of the field, it makes scheming things for Xavier Worthy that much more easy.
Yeah.
So now you get a healthy Isaiah Pacheco. Yes, not a big Isaiah Pacheco guy. The guy looks like he's trying to stomp his way through the earth down to China, but like, he's effective when he runs the football because you have weapons on the outside that you have to cover. And the same idea that, you know what, you get embarrassed in a Super Bowl, you're going to see the best of me now attitude that Patrick Mahomes has, that's going to extend to Travis Kelce as well. Let's not forget that he had 80 catches and over 800 yards last year, and we said that was a disappointment.
Yeah.
So this offense is set up to succeed, and if it succeeds, Patrick Mahomes is going to succeed with it.
I love this take so much. I think Mahomes Kelsey stack.
I'm sorry, Austin. You say that into my good ear. Did you just agree with me?
I love this Josh, so much.
So I usually don't project like crazy outlier seasons, but I'm not going to be honest, Josh. You had me so motivated there. I'm like, am I about to go project a Patrick Mahomes QB1 season?
Look, when I get into my like higher stakes best ball drafts here down the stretch, I need one of them to have a Mahomes Kelsey stack. I need that in one of my best ball exposures because I do think it is going to be so good this year and it's at such great value. It is time for it to all regress back to where it used to be.
There you go, folks.
That 7-8 round, Austin.
What's that?
That 7-8 round. I've been doing it too. Mahomes Kelsey stack right there.
Yeah, big best ball crowd here at Club Fantasy. If you want to be part of that best ball crowd, like our good friend Ola Yem over on Twitch, make sure you guys join our Discord. The link is in the description of this video. We can get you guys in there. We talk best ball. We talk fantasy baseball. Austin publicly embarrassing me by asking how my one best ball fantasy baseball team did. It finished dead last because I don't know anything about fantasy baseball, but I'm doing good in a league where I actually have to manage the team because I know how to manage things. And that's what I do, which is why I'm the host of this show. If you guys are enjoying the content, that's going to wrap up the top 12. And like, subscribe, comment. If you agree with our top 12, you disagree with the top 12, drop it in the comments so we can fight with you over on YouTube, and it'll also boost us up the algorithm. Let's move on to 13 through 24. And normally I would make some joke about how like this only matters in Superflex, but I think 4 of the 5 of us are still in on this whole late round QB thing. And there's actually a quarterback down here that I know one of us now today has ranked in his top 10. So I think this is still a group worth discussing. So at 13, we have Jared Goff. 14 is Justin Fields. 15, Trevor Lawrence. 16, Dak Prescott. 17, Jordan Love. 18, Drake Maye. 19, Bryce Young. CJ Stroud comes in at 20. JJ McCarthy at 21. Tua Tagovailoa at 22. Geno Smith at 23. And Atlanta quarterback Michael Penix out there for Millie coming in at QB 24. But where I want to start this discussion is with Justin Fields. And how I originally wrote this question was, all of our rankers have him outside of the top 10. We dropped the ball a little bit and didn't have Joel invited to the show right away. I asked, are we being too pessimistic? Joel, I'm actually going to let you get us started here. You do have Justin Fields in your top 10. I believe you said QB 10. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what are the rest of us missing on Justin Fields?
Is Justin Fields a good NFL quarterback? No. Is he a great fantasy quarterback? Yes. He's going to run the ball a ton. His weaknesses in real life are good things for fantasy because he's very slow on the release and he doesn't see the rush very well, which causes him to leave the pocket way too soon. But that leads to a lot of rushing yards, and that's good. And he's got the shower narrative with Garrett Wilson, and I'm buying that because they were very productive together at Ohio State. I wish they had like one more receiver, maybe like a half, something better than Josh Reynolds. And especially since I thought maybe Mason Taylor could be a thing, but then a high ankle sprain in the preseason, very not good for a rookie. So that's a bummer, but he can still support like running backs in the passing game. I think this could be a monster season for Breece Hall. They're talking about, kind of monitoring his workload or moderating his workload, whatever. I like Braylon a lot, but like Bryce Hall's a free agent after this year. They could just let him run nuts and go nuts and just you just burn yourself out and go be a free agent somewhere and have fun. And we're just going to ride you till you ride you hard and put you away wet. So I think they get a good offensive line. I think this Jets offense is really underrated. And like Fields made some strides as a passer last year before getting shut down by Mike Tomlin's stubbornness. So as a fantasy quarterback, there's just, if he plays 17 games, it's hard to imagine him not being a top 10 quarterback.
Austin, you are by far the lowest on Justin Fields, having him outside of your top 20. So I'm going to give you like a 30-second rebuttal here. Where is Joe wrong about Justin Fields?
Well, he set me up very well by saying if he plays 17 games, ... What if he doesn't play 17 games? I am genuinely.
When has he ever played 17 games?
Exactly. If this team starts off 1-5, I don't think he's playing 17 games. I think he's getting.
We had this fight on a show this past week about what would happen in that situation. So I'll come back to that for Chris and Josh. But please go ahead, Austin.
Outside of that, it really honestly, some of this is like the gamification of Fantasy Pros rankings, where it's like, my goal there is to predict where they actually finish, and because then I get to be one of the consensus top 5 rankers, and I get the little gold star for it, and it is fun to do that. So like, do I think it's more likely he finishes QB 21 than QB 10? Yes. Would I draft him at QB 10? Yes, because he's on the Anthony Richardson program. You can draft him and then draft any of these quarterbacks that go after him that are going to be totally fine and stable. And if you get right on Justin Fields, you get the upside, great, you win your league, it's all good. But if he does get benched in week 7, you have a nice backup.
Yeah. I think Austin brings up 2 pitfalls I would always warn folks about rankings, certainly with Fantasy Pros. And this is in no way to disparage Fantasy Pros. We appreciate the engine that they provide small sites like ours. But it is a contest. And so there is a thing where it's like, I need to put where I think he's going to finish so that I can get brownie points at the end of the season. And it's not always the way of how you would draft them. But this is also something we talk about on the mock draft show all the time. And Josh, we actually talk about this a lot when our normal shows with Joe. When I'm on the clock, I sometimes pick a little bit differently than my rankings. And it's usually not to Austin's extent of I'll take a guy at QB 10 who I have ranked at 21, but I'll certainly take a guy at QB 10 who I have at like 14, which is I think where Fields falls for me. So I definitely agree with everything Austin's saying there. But Josh, we got into a fight this week, unless it was my mock draft show, I don't remember which show it was, about would Justin Fields get benched if they start the season 0-6? And I don't think they would, but you completely disagreed with me if I remember correctly.
It is New York City.
Yeah,
this is the New York Jets.
That was your argument.
Now, I understand they play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. This is the New York Jets. Justin Fields will be plastered all over the back pages of the Post if they start 0-6 because he's not that good, plain and simple. This isn't Chicago. This isn't Las Vegas. This isn't Seattle. This is New York fucking City. If Justin Fields flat out sucks, it is Tyrod Taylor season, plain and simple. Like, there's no 2 ways about that to me. I do have Fields as my QB 12, and before Joel's realization of, he's in my top 10, I was ashamed that I was the highest on Justin Fields because I feel like I've been the most vocal against Justin Fields because everybody just wants to go to, well, he's been a top 6 quarterback twice. Let's break this down. It's top 6 in points per game, and that one season literally was because he had over 1,000 rushing yards. And then last year he was top 6 in points per game during his first and his only 6 starts with the Steelers. Now, if you start extrapolating that over full seasons, he doesn't finish there because he doesn't play every fucking game. So yes, he's a great value when he plays, but he never plays 17 games. So there's so much risk built in with drafting Justin Fields that, to Austin's point, if you do spend up where he's going in ADP, you have to package him with another quarterback because otherwise you're going to be left looking at the waiver wire. And if you're in deeper leagues, that waiver wire is much thinner than if you're in an 8 or a 10 person league.
And this is what Justin Fields does. He tears the fantasy community apart. because the takes are so opposite on those. I do want to move on.
I want everyone to have fun.
Well,
I just want them to have fun.
Chris, you're about to have some fun, except I have no idea what your actual take on this guy is. A name that popped out to me that has actually been a mystery for me the entire time I've been doing rankings is how, as rankers, are we handling JJ McCarthy? Because we saw this offense produce a top 10 fantasy quarterback last season, but we know nothing about this kid. Everybody on this show, Joel will have to chime in. And Joel, I was going to go to you second on this one. Everyone on this show that had the rankings on the site has McCarthy at 18 or lower, but coming out of an offense that could be pretty damn good, Chris. So how did you approach JJ McCarthy?
Damn it. I prepared like you were going to ask me about Michael Penix. I was like, yes, I'm ready to hammer Michael Penix.
Well, then,
but
okay, do you want me to pass?
JJ McCarthy is such a mystery.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, then, Joel,
I don't have an opinion on JJ McCarthy. I'm
okay.
pretty neutral.
Well, and neither does anybody else. But Joel, you're my resident Vikings adjacent fan. Talk to me about JJ McCarthy.
I've got McCarthy at 15. I'm afraid I might be low on that ranking,
and that puts you 3 ahead of anybody.
You're the highest among all of us there.
Yeah. But my real question here, Joel, is how did you approach it? Like, walk us through your thought process, because putting it bluntly, unless you are a Michigan fan, 90% of fantasy players don't know who the hell JJ McCarthy is.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. This offense, and Kevin O'Connell specifically, turned Sam Darnold into a fringe top 5 quarterback. Last year, they upgraded their offensive line. I think if they had probably had that offensive line last year, they probably would have won one of those 2 games at the end where they kind of crapped the bed against the Lions and the Rams in the playoffs. So yeah, the thing that bothers me about McCarthy is he didn't have much experience at Michigan, and they didn't let him throw very much. They didn't need to, right? They ran the ball a ton with Blake Corum, and they won a national championship. So I don't know if he has that kind of memory box to kind of fall back on if things get kind of sketchy and things get haywire. But I think the offense is going to be so structured. He's going to have TJ Hawkinson to throw to as kind of a safety blanket. He's going to have Jefferson, Addison eventually coming out of the suspension. He's going to have guys who get open downfield. He's got an elite running back weapon in the backfield in Aaron Jones. He's just got so many weapons. I just don't see how this guy fails unless he's just absolutely terrible. And I don't think that's the case. Like, I don't think this organization is so bad that they would misread a guy that they drafted in the top 10. And the anti-Viking fatalist in me just says that I can't get lucky enough for them to screw up a pick that important that badly.
I've been doing shows with Austin Amandolia for 4 years, and I don't think I've ever seen him want to chime in so much in his whole life. So, Austin, the floor is yours, my friend.
I have once bet on a quarterback who was going to start their rookie year, got hurt, missed most of their rookie year, and then came back, and we thought, oh, he's going to be great. And then he played 3 games, and we never heard of him again. Oh, Trey Lance is the guy that comes to mind there. And
like, who are you
he also
about?
didn't
I
have
no idea.
He also didn't have a ton of experience in college, and so I'm a little burned by that.
Yeah,
because of that, I'm like, I don't know that I want to smash JJ McCarthy right now. I do think that he's in a really good situation, but I would argue that being in a Kyle Shanahan offense was also a really good situation. So
yeah, we
don't know. Like, having that little experience and that time off is a big risk to me. And so he's a fine QB2 for me. Like, I'll take a risk on him later on, but and him being QB15, totally appropriate with that. That's how I approached him, was like, I'm good here. I've been down this path before. I don't want to do it again.
Josh, I'm going to get to you in a second, but I'm going to let Chris get in here, and I'm going to actually throw good fan of the show, Millie Mills, up on the screen, because Millie's thought process went to exactly where my thought process went. Chris, should we not be treating JJ McCarthy a little bit more like Michael Penix, or I guess vice versa, treating Michael Penix a little bit more like JJ McCarthy? And while they're not like wildly off from one another, they're only 3 spots away from each other in our rankings. We have Michael Penix as low as 26 and 27 on a few lists. So in that sense, should McCarthy be lower on people's lists? Should Penix be higher? How do you compare these two? In my opinion, relatively unknown quarterbacks. And when I say unknown, I know you guys know who these players are. We don't know their games. We don't know enough about how they're translating to NFL and fantasy.
They are pretty unknown. That's why I had a hard time ranking JJ McCarthy. But what McCarthy will do is he will run. He will scramble. He will put up, I don't know, anywhere from 250 to 400 yards rushing, maybe throw in 2 to 4 touchdowns. Penix will not. Penix does not run the ball. I believe he had 11 yards rushing last year in 3 games on 7 attempts. And his season at Washington, where he took them to the national championship game, I think he averaged 0.2, something like that, yards per attempt. And I know college is different because, they count sacks. But what that tells me is he does not run the ball at all. He has a lot of injury history. And, I gave him 22 touchdowns and nearly 4,000 yards passing. He has Drake London and Kyle Pitts, but I also have him at 56 yards rushing. That's why he comes out to QB 27 and why McCarthy, for me, with 250 yards rushing, came out to QB 18. But the difference between the two of them is actually it's a lot. It's 60 points. I digress on that point.
Well, that's rushing yards. So, Josh, wrap us up on JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix.
Yeah, I have McCarthy like 35 points ahead of Penix, and it's literally for those exact points that Chris said. Penix isn't going to run the football. So when you're dealing with 2 virtual unknowns, McCarthy was active in the running game in college. That's a skill set that he had at Michigan. Austin, very much like Trey Lance. So, there of course is still a lot of similarities there. But, from the simple mindset of you trust the bigger school versus the, smaller school aspect, people will buy more into McCarthy over Trey Lance in that theory. But that's really what it boils down to for me with McCarthy versus Penix. Like, I love Drake London. I think he's an absolutely fantastic wide receiver, but he's not Justin Jefferson. So there's your first point. I absolutely love Aaron Jones, but he's not Bijan Robinson. So when you're dealing with things of that nature, when you have a team with a really, really good running back, like a Bijan Robinson, who the team is absolutely going to feed the football to, that's going to hurt the upside of the quarterback, especially when throwing red zone touchdowns. Because when you have a back like Bijan Robinson, that back is just going to run in those touchdowns. Yeah. So that to me, I only have Penix at 22 touchdowns. I think he could 100% throw for 27, 28 touchdowns. But the likelihood of that happening when you have a Bijan Robinson behind you, it's slimmer. I have McCarthy at 24 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, he has once upon a time scored a ton of touchdowns, but he hasn't done that much recently. Jordan Mason, for what everybody wants to say is a really, really good running back, he's not very good in the red zone. So there's touchdown upside for McCarthy if the team does get into the red zone. So that's, for me, what went into my thought process of McCarthy over Penix.
Yeah, I think the analysis y'all provide is totally fair. The only thing I want to push back on in all of this is that JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix are as equally known commodities as each other, when Michael Penix had almost 1,700 passing attempts in college, whereas JJ McCarthy had 700 passing attempts in college. And one of these guys we have actually seen
6 years in college.
6 years.
Okay, that's more experience. That's more.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he had 3 full seasons where he missed time. So,
and Michael Penix actually played NFL snaps last year.
Yeah. Again, I didn't mean, it's just their games. I don't know what to expect out of Michael Penix. This show is going to run super long, folks.
Starts. That's what you should expect out of his games.
3 starts. I don't know. This show is going to run super long, so I'm figuring out ways to cut this without cutting any of the content, because I feel like my show sheet is really good and I don't want to cut any content. So for this next one, I'm going to have these guys defend their takes. I was going to let people counter argument the takes. I am not going to do that. Joel, at the end of this, because I don't have a take for you to defend, I'm going to let you decide which one of these guys did the best. So we're just going to run these in order. Josh, you are the lowest on Dak Prescott. You have him ranked as your QB 22. Defend that take.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably an asinine take, because you guys hear me say all the time, believe in the numbers and the numerology. The last 6 seasons, Dak Prescott has had over 30, under 20, over 30, under 20, over 30, under 20. So we're in the over 30 year right now for Dak Prescott. But it goes back to basically everything I talked about with Baker Mayfield. Dak Prescott is one of those quarterbacks that could finish as high as QB9. Honestly, he's been a top 3 quarterback. You could put him in that category as well. But if the wheels fall off, he could be a QB20, right? I'm banking on the history that tells me that George Pickens doesn't catch touchdowns. And that goes all the way back to college, where he never scored more than 6 touchdowns in a season. So if you've got a great wide receiver that knows how to rack up yards but can't find the freaking end zone, and he's supposed to be a highly targeted piece of your offense, that's going to drag down the upside of the quarterback. Now, Jalen Tolbert scored 7 touchdowns last year, outpacing CeeDee Lamb in that category. So maybe those touchdowns do migrate to somebody that, Dak was able to find, or Cooper Rush was able to find, whomever. But for me, Pickens and Lamb are going to be on the field the most. So those are the guys that I'm looking at. And when I do my projections, I project the touchdowns to the skill players, and that's what populates for the quarterback. That's why I don't have Dak near as high, and he doesn't run near as much as he did since the big ankle injury. So I think the rushing upside there is very minimal. So he has to be a 4,500 passing yard guy, a 35-plus touchdown guy to get to those levels that I think everybody is drafting him at.
Chris, Drake Maye, the New England second-year quarterback, all the way down at QB 25, you are by far the lowest on Mr. Drake Maye.
Yeah, I mean, Drake Maye, I think he's a product of his environment. I don't trust the New England passing offense. Even with, the ghost of Stephon Diggs there, you'd have to convince me that, Drake Maye would throw more than, 20 to 25 touchdowns this year. And everyone was up on his rushing ability at over 400 yards in his starts. I think that's why he wasn't like QB 30 last year, and he was instead QB 17 in points per game. Between week 6 and week 17, that was ahead of guys like Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence. So there's competition for those spots between like 13 to 25. Not to mention he's bunched up with a bunch of other people too. I think I have Jordan Love at QB 20, which is only 15 points ahead of Drake Maye. For him to have one of these Kyler seasons that we've been seeing, especially last year, where he sneaks into the top 10 because of his rushing, he's going to have to punch it in more. He's going to have 5, 6, 7 rushing touchdowns, maybe 6+ 100 yards rushing. And with Ramondre Stevenson, they went and got Travion Henderson. What do you believe about this team? Are they going to be bad? If so, I'm avoiding Drake Maye. Are they going to be good? Then is it because of Drake Maye, or are they, going to combine for like 25 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah.
Remains to be seen. I just don't want any part of him at his ADP.
All right. And Chris, it's interesting telling you to defend this guy because by rankings, you have him where he belongs. But the fantasy world, myself include, loves Bryce Young this season. You are the lowest on him down at QB 24. Defend it.
I assume you're talking Austin. To me.
Yeah. Oh, Austin.
I was I love Bryce Young.
I was going to say, yeah. I was reading a question ahead. That's where I got myself in trouble there. But anyway, Austin, defend Bryce Young as your QB 24, the darling of the fantasy world based on what he did last season.
I mean, I feel like there's so many other options. It's the real thing. Like, I don't have anything against Bryce Young. I'm fine drafting him. He's a great best ball late round pick. There's a lot of good stacking options there. It's just like when I look at him and try and put him ahead of Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Fields, Michael Penix, Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, Jordan Love, like I can't do it. It's hard to get him any higher just because there are so many quarterbacks that I love in that 10 to 20 range. So he ends up being the odd man out. I think I also am a little bit skeptical of Carolina, like taking a significant step forward as an offense. Like I think they'll improve, and having a number one receiver is good, but they're also a rush offense. They like to run the ball. They pay Chuba Hubbard so that they continue running the ball. I don't think they're going to be super high volume and help Bryce Young that will help Bryce Young get the volume he needs to be a top 15 quarterback option in fantasy. So because of that, I'm lower on him. I'm not super interested in drafting him in redraft leagues, only kind of in best ball for me.
Joel, were you higher on any of these guys, and did any of these arguments persuade you to be lower on them?
Not really. I think
you all suck.
I think the thing I would worry about with Josh, with Dak, is like, again, that defense is going to be so bad, and the running game is going to be so bad that I think that the volume is just going to be.
Their offensive line is also really bad.
I don't think it's really bad. I think it's just pretty.
Oh, I don't know. Their starting left tackle is already going to miss 6 weeks. So,
yeah, we may thing though.
The Packers may trade for Rashid Walker in a deal for Micah Parsons. So, yeah, I just think that Dak's volume is just going to be massive this year. So I'm not buying Josh's argument. Austin's just defending the status quo. So sorry, man. I don't think you're wrong. I just think you're defending a point that everyone agrees with.
I don't know though. I feel like maybe I'm just in my own head that everyone loves Bryce Young. It's just me. So, and Chris.
I'm gonna go with Chris. I share the same concerns with Drake Maye. Is that he said that they wanted to scramble. Most of his rushing yardage came on scrambles last year, not on designed runs. And they've said they want him to scramble less. They've nominally improved their offensive line with the draft and Will Campbell and some other guys they brought in. So, and I don't like their receiver. Like, I like their ancillary passing options and Trevion Henderson and Hunter Henry, but I don't like their wide receivers at all. I think they have one of the worst wide receiver groups in the league. So, yeah, I'm not buying drinking the Drake Maye Kool-Aid just yet.
There you go. All right, let's get into the good stuff. How deep is quarterback this season? I wanted these guys to look at their rankings, and Chris actually pointed out versus looking at their rankings, I should have had them look at ADP. And what I want you guys to do is take a look at ADP versus your rankings. How far down are you willing to go with a guy you are willing to go into this season as your starter with? And Joel, because I didn't give you a chance to defend your take on the previous one, you have CJ Stroud. You're willing to go all the way down to CJ Stroud, who right now in ADP, CJ Stroud is going off the board as the QB 17, and you even have him ranked lower than that, but you're still willing to go into this season with CJ Stroud as your starter.
Yeah, and again, this is a similar but different bet to Dallas, in that I think Dallas's defense is going to be awful. I think Houston's defense is probably pretty good, but their running game is going to be brutal, especially if Joe Mixon can't get back. Their offensive line is brutal. They're just going to have to chuck it. I think it's just going to be a chuck and duck offense. They drafted 2 new wide receivers. They brought in Christian Kirk. That's, opposite of the New England Patriots. This may be one of the best wide receiver groups in the league, especially with Nico Collins. I like the Higgins kid a lot. So yeah, I think this is going to they don't have PFF Bobby calling plays anymore. And his run on first down, run on second down, throw on third down. I think they'll be a little less predictable, and they will throw more. So yeah, I'm good with Stroud. I would go down to Tua, but I can't go into a season trusting a guy with that many concussions.
There you go. Chris, just because it perfectly plays into the category we just got out of, you have Bryce Young, who is your QB 23, but is actually going off the board as the QB 27. So, Chris, you are literally saying you were fine to leave your draft without a quarterback and then sign Bryce Young on waivers and have him be your starter this season.
I think there was a miscommunication there. I was looking at it. Bryce Young is my QB 15.
Oh, even better. But that's great. On Fantasy Pros, he's going off the board as QB 27. He's your 15, what I'm getting at though is he's free, like absolutely free. And you're happy to have this guy as your starter. Maybe not happy, but you're willing to have this guy as your starter.
If I miss on that chunk, with the Kyler, Bo Nix, those kind of prospects in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, I will wait for Bryce Young, because Austin, you are wrong. You are wrong about Bryce Young. To have him below Penix, weren't we just talking about he's not a known commodity? Well, Bryce Young, when he came back since week 8, he was on pace for 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, and his rushing, he was on pace, 17 game pace for nearly 380 yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. He set the world on fire. He had games with 3 passing touchdowns. He had games with 2 rushing touchdowns. And I think Joel hit on this point earlier. The South is going to be some shootouts. Carolina's defense is atrocious. They're going to have to throw to keep, stay in games. He's going to have some big weeks. Maybe he'll have some clunkers too when he gets out of the South. But overall, I would be fine with starting Bryce Young.
Austin, you probably have the least sexy name on this list by far. Of all the players, I was a little shocked. One at I mean, not how low his ADP is, but the fact that you're willing to go in a season with Geno Smith as your starter.
I mean, well, the funny thing is before this was about ADP, I had Michael Penix, so we would have had more Michael Penix content on this show. But
I'm glad you said Geno Smith because I deleted a question because we're running so over on this one, but I deleted one that had his name, so I'm glad you brought him in. So
I just I feel continued confidence in him. He was QB 13 last year in a situation in Seattle that wasn't that great. His offensive line was not good, and I'm not saying the Raiders have like a stellar offensive line, but he's got Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and Ashton Genty as his offensive weapons. Also, let's not forget Jack Bash. I'm very excited for him this year. He has really good talent around him. I think the offensive line situation is going to be better than what he had in Seattle, and he can easily sneak into the top 12 of quarterbacks. So yeah, he is like the epitome for wait on quarterback to me this year. Now, I'm probably not waiting all the way to QB 26 in redraft because he would be on the waivers, right?
I was just going to say, let me be clear here. Nobody is waiting this long. I'm just pointing out to folks how deep quarterback is. Now, Joel is going to have a counter argument to end the show. I'm going to let Joel actually wrap up the show with his counter argument. But I'm just trying to point out quarterback is crazy deep right now. So.
It is. And I think it's a good thing for people who are playing best ball to remember, like you can get a really good quarterback at QB 26. Like you can wait until the QB 10 goes off the board and get three really solid quarterbacks and stack them and have really good upside. So I totally think it's a great point to bring up for different formats outside of the standard 12 team, 1 QB redraft league.
Josh, you and I happen to agree, so I'm going to let you make the point. Trevor Lawrence going off the board, crazy late for somebody in a exciting offense with some weapons.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I look for. I look for quarterbacks who have weapons. I mean, you spend the second overall pick on Travis Hunter, who, I mean, people in camp talk about how he could be better in this offense than Brian Thomas Jr. And when you look at, Liam Cohen, OC in Tampa last year, we all love Mike Evans. Chris Godwin was actually better in that offense than Mike Evans was. And I feel like that's kind of the roles that these two guys will play. Hunter playing that Godwin role and BTJ playing the Evans role. But I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with Chris. I'm perfectly fine taking Bryce Young as my starting quarterback. I know that I won't have to, but just kind of looking through the ADP, like there's plenty of guys between, number 1 and Lawrence at 21 that I wouldn't feel comfortable starting with. But T-Law, I'm perfectly fine with it. I think there's going to be a big bounce back. I mean, Chris, you talked about, Baker making the offensive coordinators into the head coaches. I mean, Canales did wonders with Geno. That's why we're even talking about Geno as a starting quarterback before he got his hands on Baker and then got his hands on Bryce Young and, Liam Cohen being able to actually take Baker to new heights that Baker had never reached. So, from that perspective, you've got to think that Liam Cohen can work wonders with Trevor Lawrence, something that we've talked about, Ryan, on NPI. How is Liam Cohen going to handle being a head coach and not being able to just focus on offense? That truly is the big worry. But again, when you've got weapons like BTJ and Travis Hunter and, the merry-go-round at running back behind him, there's a lot to like with T-Law that doesn't include the offensive line because good God, that's god-awful.
Joel, I'm going to let you answer this one by yourself. The rankers have all kind of spoken. We, in our consensus, have Sam Darnold coming off of a top 10 season. Every one of us, I don't know about you yet, Joel, have him ranked outside of the top 25. Have we and the fantasy world gone too far with Sam Darnold because we just don't trust Sam Darnold, or do you agree with the terrible ranking that he has received heading into the 2025 season?
I've got him at 28, so I agree. I talked about earlier how behind when he was pressured in those 2 big games at the end of the season, he kind of folded, and Seattle's offensive line was probably maybe the worst last year. One of the worst. I mean, there were some really bad offensive lines, but Seattle's was right there among them. They brought in Gray Zabel as a first round draft pick, but they haven't had a whole lot to address it. So yeah, I'm just very concerned that that they just can't protect him, and he's not been good when pressured, and he doesn't have a ton of weapons, right? I love JSN, but Cooper Kupp is dead. Sorry. They're relying on
he's in Seattle now. Do what you got to do.
Relying on a rookie tight end is one of their big part of their passing game.
Yeah.
They brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling to do their win sprint X. Come on. That's just not serious.
I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on Darnold. It's just he was a top 10 QB last season. I felt like if we don't mention him on this show at all, we're doing fantasy managers a disservice. This was a question that you guys really liked last year, and I wanted to run it back this year. And I kind of did the same thing where I looked at the teams where there's a little bit of flux in the quarterback situation. So my question to you guys is, and let's keep this one quick because the last question is the most important question. But if you knew one of these guys would start 17 games for you this season, which one of these guys would you rather have as your fantasy quarterback? And so the guys I'm having you break down are, like I said, the teams that are currently in flux. Russell Wilson, Jaxson Dart. Tyler Shugg, I didn't even put Spencer Rattler on here. Nobody's picking Spencer Rattler.
No.
But Tyler Shugg, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, and then the Browns quarterbacks, Joe Flacco, Shadur Sanders, Kenny Pickett. So, Josh, if I could guarantee you one of these guys is going to play 17 games, I think the answer is obvious, but I'm just wondering if anyone's going to pick not Anthony Richardson, Josh.
Oh, it's Jaxson Dart, and it's not close for me.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to take the guy that has quite literally the best weapon on this on the roster, and that's Malik Neighbors. He's a guy that commands. Malik Neighbors could realistically see 200 targets in this offense. And if Jaxson Dart is the one throwing it, combined with what he offers as a rushing quarterback, which I think gets overlooked, that's a top 15 quarterback in fantasy with 17 games.
Austin?
It's Anthony Richardson, no doubt.
Richardson.
I'm not picking a guy that has to rely on another player. I don't care.
Throw.
He can run. He can run for 2-3 touchdowns every game.
400 times, dude. He still has to throw the football.
Yeah, you know who else has to throw the football to Malik Neighbors for Malik Neighbors to pay off on those targets?
And Jaxson Dart knows how to do it. Why do you think Trey Harris got drafted in the second round? Because he knew how to throw him the football.
I said we're making this quick, Josh. Keep going on.
Austin and I haven't really argued, and it took us 76 minutes to get to that point. All right, so just deal with it.
It's Anthony Richardson, and there's no question about it. If you pick anybody else on this, you are losing your fantasy league.
The whole chat is so anti-AR, which is us cultivating our chat perfectly, because this is a very anti-AR.
We told everybody last year that Anthony Richardson was an absolute bust.
But the assumption is that he's playing 17 games.
Exactly.
Okay.
That is the scenario.
Even if you want to take the 10 games that he played last year and extrapolate it, he still wasn't a top 12 quarterback.
Moving on, Joel.
I've been on Anthony Richardson since they started talking about bringing Daniel Jones in. The best weapon that any of these guys have is Anthony Richardson's legs and athleticism.
Exactly.
Let's be clear here. This is like the easiest coaching job in the world. Just RPO on first down, RPO on second down. Let him chuck it to Alex Pierce or A.D. Mitchell on third down.
Yeah,
this is easy. This is not hard. It's AR.
Chris.
This is fantasy, not real life. This is a fantasy show, not a real life show.
He's not going to run 200 times. That's the whole point.
The rule is if he plays 17 games,
if he plays 17 games, he can't run the football and he's not running 200 times.
He's going to rush 160
That's what it boils down to.
Easily. Chris,
why can't he run it 200 times?
Yeah.
Because that's not the NFL.
I agree with Josh. I'm with Josh. Jaxson Dart, it was my easy pick. You know, Anthony Richardson has the big advantage with his legs. But what's overlooked is Jaxson Dart had the highest scramble rate in the country for college quarterbacks last year.
That doesn't mean he's good.
That, you know who else had this? You know who had the highest scramble rate a year before? Jayden Daniels. I brought it up on the show when I was professing my love for Jayden Daniels a year ago. If you told me Jaxson Dart will start 17 games, he's going to rush for 500 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. He's got Malik Neighbors. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson, maybe he does rush for 160 times, but he's going to have like 1,500 yards passing and 9 touchdowns, all because he completes like four passes a game. Give me Jaxson Dart, and I agree with Josh. It's not close.
All right,
Richardson
guys.
would run for 500 yards by October.
That's true, too.
And if he only has 300 passing yards, what does that really get you in fantasy? Nothing.
Oh, there's an argument to be made
He
there.
went a full game completing 25% of his passes. Seriously.
Single wing,
that
baby.
I don't care. That's not even a fantasy quarterback. Not even a fantasy
single wing. That's all we need.
No.
Man, if I had more time, we could get into this. We're not going to. Because mathematically, 500 rushing yards for a quarterback is I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head. It's like
1,250
passing yards or something like that. But regardless, we'll get into that later. I wanted to end the show on this because I did think this is the best time to let my ranker shine. And that is, I want you to tell the listeners, who is your perfect quarterback this season? And this is everything baked into it. Most importantly, their draft cost. And so I wanted you guys just to look at your rankings versus their draft cost. And ideally, who are you walking out of a draft with that makes a ton of sense? Josh, who's your perfect quarterback this season?
I keep finding myself in on this Green Bay Packers offense, and for me, it's Jordan Love. He's got enough weapons that he can be a 30 touchdown passer. He's not going to offer a ton with his legs, but he can get you over 200 rushing yards. He can add in a touchdown here and there. And a lot of this is because I think Josh Jacobs regresses this year. He's not going to be the same type of bell cow, and that's going to put more emphasis on Jordan Love's arm. And in 2 seasons, he's had 27 and 30 passing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So he can throw the football. And again, when you spend a first round draft pick on a wide receiver, the expectation is you throw him the fucking football. It's no two ways around that. So I think you're going to see this team pass the ball more, and it's only going to make Jordan Love more attractive. And when you look at he's going 129 overall. That's an 11th round pick. That allows you to absolutely load up and stack your roster with studs and values across the board. And then you end up with Jordan Love, even if you want to take him in round 10. Now I've got a full starting lineup. I've got a couple of bench spots and my starting quarterback who, in theory, could have top 5 upside if he has a Joe Burrow type season passing the football.
There we go. Austin, who is your perfect starting quarterback for the 2025 season?
It's Josh Allen by far. I feel like he is always worth taking the early round pick because when was the last time he was not a top 3 quarterback?
Yeah.
It's been a hot minute. He's just always worth it no matter what his ADP is. I get there's an opportunity cost argument here. It can't always happen, but it's just, I always feel good coming out of a draft with Josh Allen.
Yeah, if I was a better host, I would have had you go just before or after Joel, but that's a problem for down the road. Chris, who's your perfect quarterback heading into this season?
It's Trevor Lawrence. You guys touched on it earlier. I'm in total agreement with Lawrence. There's not only his ADP of being QB 19, you can get him in the 11th round of underdog, maybe even later in your home redraft leagues. He stats out as my QB 14. He's done it before. He was the QB 8 a couple seasons ago. He's got Liam Cohen. If I know anything, it's offensive coordinators matter, right, Josh? And then his rushing ability before last year, cut short by injury, kind of a disaster for Jacksonville. He had 11 rushing touchdowns in 3 years. He's always around 300 to 350 yards rushing. That provides a good floor. And then obviously you guys touched on it earlier. Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. I was singing his praises a year ago. And then the Etienne versus Byshell Tootin. I still like Etienne, but both of those guys should be weapons in the passing game. And then it's the South. It's not the NFC South, the AFC South, but same thing. So tons of opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I'm just going to quickly throw out Bo Nix. If you're looking for someone who I think could even get better in his second season, I just remind folks that when Bo Nix was coming into the draft, we said, my goodness, if he ends up in Denver, it's a match made in heaven. And he showed us that as a rookie. They've got Cortland Sutton under contract. They go and get Evan Ingram, and he's likely to play the slot role on this team and just give them another weapon, giving Nix another weapon. We saw good Marvin Mims for points last year. Nix is going off a little bit earlier than Josh and Chris's guy. You have to probably spend an 8th or a 9th round pick for Nix. But Nix is a guy who's super interesting to me at that range because by that time, I've pretty much filled up all of my other starters, and I'm not the type of person who has to fill my starters up before I start moving on. But Nix is probably that last quarterback that I'm willing to take a run on. As you could gather, if you've watched Club Fantasy for any period of time, we've been a QB late show forever. But Joel, you just put out an article, and it's the reason I want to let you go ahead and wrap this show up on there's merit to not worrying about drafting your quarterback late in the draft and what's going to happen, and just grabbing the guy who just had the statistically best fantasy season ever. So.
Yeah, I've been playing fantasy football for over 30 years. Like, this is as deep as the quarterback pool has ever been. There's only a couple teams where I look at and say, I'm not taking a quarterback from that team. So if there's one overriding point to take from this entire show, it's that the difference in projection between QB 6-7 and QB 26-27 is pretty minimal. It's maybe 30, 40 points. So if everybody's good, then I want great. Like, that's how I'm going to separate. I want the great ones because, yeah, everybody can wait, but you're getting the same guy at every other draft position. So give me the great ones. Give me the one who can separate. And there's more than one. There's, if you want to wait for Jalen Hurts, that's fine. If you like Jayden Daniels, that's fine. I want one of the elite ones, and just one of those elite ones just happened to have the best quarterback season or best fantasy season of all time last year. That's Lamar Jackson.
Yep. Check Joel's article out. That is available at clubfantasyffl.com. Guys, that is going to wrap up the QB ranking show. We don't normally go 90 minutes. So if you rode with us this long, we certainly appreciate you. I'll try to do a little bit better on next week's show sheet, but running backs and wide receivers are even deeper. So it's probably going to be way worse for the next 2 weeks, but the tight end show is going to be like 17 minutes. So you guys are going to be in really good shape after that one. For all of my rankers, thank you. You can follow Club Fantasy on all the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. Website is clubfantasyffl.com. We will be back next week talking running backs. If you didn't catch the beginning of the show, make sure you check out womenoffantasyfootball.com for the excellent raffles we have going on. We'll be here to talk running backs with you guys next week. Have a great night. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and we will see you next week.